Hey, what's up everybody? Jay's 2 Cents here, and today we're going to talk about some of the news that you've probably heard already regarding MSI Afterburner's development in jeopardy. The future of the project being in jeopardy. There's some things to talk about here. There's been some updates, some responses from MSI and stuff. We're going to talk about what this means to you, how this potentially affects you in the future, and we're going to try looking at it through some different optics. Shut up. The Lee & Lee UniFan SL-V2 refreshes one of the most innovative fan designs we've ever seen. The completely redesigned interlocking key provides improved radiator clearance, while the 28mm frame provides 10% better airflow compared to V1. Interlocking fan frames allow for clutter-free daisy chain, providing the cleanest cable management possible. Available in black or white, the UniFan SL-V2 can be purchased either individually or a 3-fan starter pack, including everything you need to get started. To learn more about the UniFan SL-V2, follow the sponsored link in the description below. All right, now that the 40s have fully set in, I'm wearing my glasses full time now, so you can believe what I say because I just look smarter now, I guess. So anyway, if you guys haven't heard, the MSI Afterburner project is actually a one-person project. The guy is actually located in Russia. He's a Russian private developer that basically years and years ago kind of reached out to MSI and was like, hey, I developed this thing. We're talking about Riva Tuner and some other analytic software. The MSI Afterburner, or MSI, ended up kind of funding and sort of hiring him to sort of develop the project. Now the project's always belonged to him, and his name, and I'm gonna mutilate this, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce Russian names very well, but his name is Alexei Nikolichuk? Alexei Nikolichuk. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. As you guys are probably aware, over the last 11 months, there has been this kind of a thing happening in the Ukraine/Russian and Eastern Europe area right now. With him being based in Russia, he made a post on Guru3D. Now, Guru3D.com, if you guys have never been there, that's like the old school, these are the die-hard 3D modifying / BIOS customizing / gurus, hence in the name, of anything accelerated graphics. This website goes back a long time. Now, he would do most of his project updates there. If you wanted to know what was coming, what was in the pipeline, like some of the features being worked on, bugs and all that, it was all kind of just handled there. And in Guru3D is where he made a post basically saying that he hadn't received any payment from MSI for the last 11 months. And basically, if you overlay that timeline about being paid, it lines up perfectly with a lot of the sanctions and stuff that have been taking place regarding the conflict out in that area. He posted that he believes this is the death of the project. Because he hasn't been receiving any sort of payment or full disclosure here. I have no idea what their agreement is. He hasn't really said what the agreement was. Is this a contractor based? Is he officially a contractor of MSI? Is it something that he was just unofficially doing where there's no contract in place? Were there agreements on how long this would be supported? And there's a lot of questions that I still have here because since this news initially broke, I wasn't planning on really making a video about this until I started to realize like what kind of implications this has towards the enthusiast consumer / just GPU enthusiast out there that likes to tinker or play around with their stuff, which is obviously how we view graphics cards and CPUs and stuff like that here. We like to tinker with it. And MSI Afterburner has always been the easiest, free, stable, reliable software to use because the irony is that these graphics card companies, aside from MSI, because the funny part is, even though it's MSI Afterburner, believe it or not, it doesn't fully integrate with MSI graphics cards. It just has their name in it, but it's a completely standalone product. You can't control the RGB or BIOS updates or any of that stuff with MSI Afterburner as the name might actually imply. Pretty sure all of these run on the RTSS engine, which is actually developed by this guy. It's a separate product that's usually bundled within. So you probably have seen RTSS updates and stuff built into MSI Afterburner. Now RTSS is what gives you the overlay of like, when we show you on screen of like what the FPS is, what the temperatures are, what the CPU temps and stuff are, that's all RTSS. And then you've got the tuning side of it, which basically just bakes into the driver and allows you to be able to move sliders that are tied into the GPU firmware or BIOS. So you can see how if you're liking to mess around with your hardware, specifically GPUs, it would be a big deal if this project stopped. Now, here's the thing, MSI responded. And MSI basically said, our product marketing and accounting team are dealing with this problem now. Due to the war, our payments couldn't transfer to the author's bank account successfully. We are still keeping in touch with him and figuring out how to solve this. Now this comes specifically from Hassan Mujtaba. He's from WCCF Tech, and apparently he got that quote directly sent to him by MSI. Now a couple questions that I have here is there's an 11-month timeline that we're talking about right here. And it sounds to me like with what Alexei is saying, he hasn't had any communication with MSI in the meantime, or at least not great communication. Because what basically sounds like here is MSI responded to this news articles about MSI Afterburner being dead, because the articles, and to be fair, the post specifically written on Guru 3D, and you can go and read it yourself. He said, war and politics are the reasons. I didn't mention it in MSI Afterburner development news thread, but the project is semi-abandoned by the company during quite a long time already. Actually, we're approaching 1 year mark since the day when MSI stopped performing their obligations under Afterburner license agreement due to politics situation. So clearly they had an agreement. I tried to continue performing my obligations, worked on the project on my own during the last 11 months, but am resulting in nothing but disappointment. I have a feeling that I am just beating a dead horse and wasting energy on something that is no longer needed by the company. Anyway, I'll try to continue supporting it myself while I have some free time, but will probably need to drop it and switch to something else, allowing me to pay my bills. So that makes it sound like MSI just ghosted. Now, I don't know if that's the case. MSI is saying here they tried to make their payments and they've been in communication, but the question is how long they've been in communication. Did they just start communicating again because they're now seeing public scrutiny about this apparently leaving this developer high and dry? Now, the non-payment situation, it's a realistic, feasible problem. However, we do know that there are other methods to be able to pay someone in Russia right now. Now, it's an ugly situation, and with the amount of sanctions and stuff going on, I'm sure that every single dollar going in and out of the country is being highly scrutinized and monitored and watched. I don't particularly know the details about how to get payments in and out right now, but I know that there are payments possible, and there are apps that make it possible. Whether or not MSI is set up to utilize any of those is a whole nother question. Now, I would think with something as important as MSI Afterburner, they would go through those steps. However, knowing MSI like I do, I could see them literally just dragging their feet, using the conflict as an excuse to just not really have to pay in the meantime. And that's where things get a little dirty here. Now, he did go on to say in another post that he's gonna continue to develop and work on RTSS. RTSS is his baby. And as long as RTSS is around, the future of these projects can continue, whether they be in a new form of software that he controls. I have no idea. He probably required a lot of the support from MSI, not just in monetary for his time, but also having access to the firmwares and the BIOS and the PCBs themselves to be able to go in and create this, because he can't create software that can. Have you guys ever gotten a new graphics card and you notice that until there's a BIOS or a update to MSI Afterburner and RTSS, that it may not give you full control over your stuff? Right? Have you noticed that? In fact, oftentimes it will work with newer graphics cards without being updated, but you may not get full control over certain things. Like the 40 series graphics cards from MSI and from NVIDIA period, they work on MSI Afterburner, but some functions don't work. So like for instance, the Founders Edition 4090, initially when I used it, I had no voltage slider control, which is just it's an offset slider on when the voltage goes to 100%. You don't actually add more voltage that way. It didn't work initially, but then it started working even though there was no update. So stuff like that you can expect to get ironed out through updates to the software, which the last actual official update was December of 21. So it's kind of a sad situation. Now I've seen people say, well, that's okay. If you're gonna go ahead and just be overclocking your graphics card and stuff, you should EVGA's PX1 anyway. Well, PX1 only works on NVIDIA graphics cards, and they're probably only gonna work up to 40 series because the company that's no longer making graphics cards is probably not gonna be sinking time, effort, and money into keeping their free software up to date with future generations of graphics cards. You'd probably have to start paying for that software. The question is, would you be willing to pay for something like PX1 if it worked with, say, AMD and NVIDIA graphics cards, and it were cheap enough? Then you would have proper funding for the software through, people. Let's say it's like a Steam app. In fact, it actually is a Steam app. You can get a standalone and a Steam app, but let's say it was a Steam app for $5. Would you pay $5 to have continued support for being able to tune and tweak your graphics cards? We're talking fan settings, we're talking, the voltage sliders, undervolting. You can't do any of that sort of stuff on NVIDIA graphics cards without this software. So you see people all the time talk about undervolt. Well, yeah, on AMD, you can use the Wattman to do that, Global Watt Manager, but you can't do that on NVIDIA graphics cards without this software. Specifically, the software he's developed that is being used in pretty much every piece of software out there right now. Now, yeah, obviously we're aware that Global Watt Manager built into Radeon software obviously has its tuning utilities and its sliders and stuff that you can do. In fact, it's probably the best method to utilize if you truly want to tune your AMD graphics card. And we're starting to wonder now if maybe NVIDIA kind of got wind of some of this, because obviously GeForce Experience has performance tuning built into its driver as well. So with GeForce Experience, you can still access the same sliders and stuff. But it's funny because GeForce Experience in the beginning was basically designed to be two things. One, kind of like shadow play for screen recording and backwards capturing. If something really cool happened, you could go back and capture the recording, because it was always like capturing a certain amount of time behind your gameplay. And performance tuning for your game settings, not the graphics card itself, but adjusting game settings based on its AI learning of this graphics card in this game would be able to really utilize these settings and get the best performance. Then now you can go in there and even hit a one-touch tuning, which is funny because we know NVIDIA doesn't like overclocking. They tout every now and then in their keynotes about it can overclock to 3000 megahertz, but we know they hate overclocking. They've never supported any of our LN2 stuff or any of that that we've done. But they have a one-touch tuning in there, which goes in and per bin does frequency and voltage, enhancements to each bin to give you the best performance possible. But I personally don't want to rely on the manufacturer for their software tuning of the graphics cards, because I find that then you're at the limit of what they feel you should have access to. And when you have third-party stuff like RivaTuner or RTSS and Afterburner, giving us full control of whatever metrics in the BIOS and firmware we have access to, is what I personally would rely on. Plus, I don't want to have the second, I don't run GeForce Experience in any of my systems. I don't like, it's bloatware as far as I'm concerned. So I don't run it in any of my NVIDIA systems, and the AMD stuff is automatic with the driver. It comes with it no matter what. So I just don't want to rely on the manufacturers for any of this tuning stuff. I want to rely on enthusiasts to do it. So I guess really the whole point of this video is nothing more than to just kind of make you aware of what's going on. A lot of you sent me the articles of people talking about this yesterday. It wasn't something I initially was going to talk about because I feel like it was covered enough in a lot of these written articles, but since there was an MSI update and it really seems to be almost like the Spider-Man pointing meme right now at who's to blame. I don't know, the original post sounds very accusatory of being ghosted. MSI says we've been in contact, but they don't say how long. I mean, if they've been in contact now over the last 48 hours, have they been in contact all along? I know MSI adopts the shut up and say nothing method.
Call MSI, please.
Crap. So the point of this video is just to kind of make you aware that, this software that you've probably come to like and use and enjoy is in jeopardy of potentially not continuing. At least there might be an interim period there where it's just not updated. There hasn't been an official update for over a year now. There's been those betas. But anyway, it's kind of a sad situation. MSI Afterburner has been around as long as I can remember with modern graphics cards. I've done a ton of tutorials on it. It is free, easy to use, and gives you full control over your NVIDIA and AMD graphics cards. And it'll be sad to see this go. I guess the whole point is just to bring awareness over the fact that we have this Spider-Man pointing meme happening now between the developer and MSI, and in another post, I think I started to say this earlier, there's another post where it sounded like he was almost trying to get away from the project as a whole. Like he was kind of like, I've been looking for reasons to sort of not do this anyway and do my own thing. Is this maybe a way of trying to break the agreement? I don't know, this is all speculation, but that's the problem that happens in situations like this, especially if you have one party looking for an out, and then a perfect situation arises to have that out, which is current conflict there. Especially if he's looking to continue developing on his own. I would have to imagine once sanctions are lifted, or if there's, he utilizes some of the other platforms that are more crowdsourced, might make a lot more money branching off on his own and then being completely third party separate without the MSI name, because he owns RTSS. That's not technically licensed with MSI. That's bundled along with Afterburner. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But it's like we've had now one of the greatest graphics card manufacturers we've had over the last 20 years with one of the best warranties, no longer making graphics cards. How long are they going to continue making their software? I can't imagine that continuing past 40 series. At least they developed a 4090 that they could use to update their software to work fine with it. But I can't see them dumping resources into software that's free, that the whole point of it was giving them an easy way to have users be able to do firmware updates and tune and Basically, they needed a way for people to be able to monitor the ICX stuff that was built into their graphics cards, and Precision X1 was perfect for that. With no more graphics cards, there's no reason to build software to support a Ghost. So, all right, guys, sound off down below how you feel about this news. Is this just like the nails in the GPU coffins just kind of keep getting hammered in, or are we all overreacting here? All right, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, you can believe what I said because I have the glasses now. What's up, guys? Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
You forgot your name?
Hey, guys.
What's up, guys? I forgot.
I'm here.
Somebody's here, yeah.